Hi, welcome to Enter the Bunker, where we launch you into thriving. Each week we talk about a different virtue that can be used as a building brick to build your own personal bunkers. We share personal stories, as well as tips and tricks to help you thrive instead of survive. So sit down, relax, and enter the bunker.
Part 2 of honesty.
How to be honest in today's age so that you can thrive.
We have 4 ways here.
4.
So we'll do the same thing we do every other time. We'll read off them and then we'll go back and talk about each one.
One at a time.
So number 1 is be honest with yourself. 2, consider long-term consequences of your actions. 3, personal integrity. And 4, keep your word. So those are 4 ways to how to lead an honest lifestyle. So we'll go back to number 1 with be honest with yourself.
Yes.
Do you think you have to be on, before we get into this, do you think you have to be honest with yourself before you're honest with other people?
100%.
I don't know. Yeah?
Why not?
I don't know. Because sometimes, I guess, to show true honesty like we were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you can't, I mean, it's trying to find the right.
I know, I couldn't think of it either.
So the truth is that everything that you do, I mean, in terms of your honesty, right? It's what you're practicing, right?
Yeah.
It's like from within, it comes out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're constantly lying to yourself, then you're gonna have a really hard time being honest with somebody else. If you're constantly being honest with yourself, you're gonna have a really hard time not being honest with others.
What do you think of white lies?
So white lies, I mean,
Like the little ones you tell your kids.
so it's one thing I wouldn't even call them white lies. Sometimes you're telling these stories because they carry a certain
Story.
it's a story that has a certain characteristic to it that's supposed to essentially give them some type of lesson,
Right.
usually.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So,
Okay.
so these would be the kind of like white lies you would tell in terms of like it's not necessarily honest,
Right.
but it's a story nonetheless that illustrates something that happens. It's actually like a lot like what the Bible is made out of. It's like the Bible is nothing but a whole series of stories,
Yeah.
which illustrates certain spiritual conditions that we all have, and that what happens when you do this is what's going to happen. When you do that, this is what's going to happen. It's like, and then what does it all mean,
Right.
So it's all just a series of stories of like what's happened throughout history, and to illustrate spiritual truths, right? So we do the same thing, when we sometimes tell these stories that aren't completely honest,
Right.
but they illustrate a point,
Okay.
right?
Yep. That makes sense. I like
Yeah.
that better than calling it a white lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a white lie. Okay, let's get on with it. So number 1, be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, it is unlikely you'll be able to be honest with others. If you repeat a lie you tell yourself to others, that just enhances the lie. By being honest with yourself, it opens the door to growing and bettering yourself.
100%.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of just talked about this already, I guess. Kind of, not really. Did we? I don't remember.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing though is to recognize that you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
So the more you practice that, the better you're going to be at being honest with others. And
It'll just come naturally.
Exactly.
More so than having to try.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it is something that's difficult for a lot of people, because the truth is that a lot of people tend to go places in their lives that they don't necessarily want to be.
Yeah.
And so then they end up not being honest with themselves, and then they start making all these excuses for, why this and why that. And then the next thing you know, they're just doing it all the time. It's like, you hear some people say like, oh, I'm going to be in business one day. But then they never do the things they need to do it. And then they keep on telling this lie to themselves about why they can't.
Right.
Right. And so then you do these types of things on all the things in your life. The next thing you know, you just like, people are going to look at you just like, you're just nothing but BS. You're not honest.
So,
right?
yeah, a funny story with that. I had a friend growing up, and she I guess she wasn't fully honest, but she was exaggerated. So her true stories and her honest stories would turn into, I guess, not honest stories because of how much she's exaggerated. We all knew it as a group of friends too. Like we all knew that this is what she did. So now I remember like growing up thinking like not really going to her for opinions and stuff because it was either exaggerated to the extreme or it was nothing at all. And yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly that. I had a friend just like that too when I was younger.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that he would, everybody knew, like, and especially he would talk about things that had to do with computer stuff.
Yeah.
And of course I know all about that.
Right.
So I understood the things he was talking about. And so when he would try to tell a story, I would just be like, yeah, that's not possible. And I wouldn't tell him that, but I would just eventually got to the point of just like, oh yeah, and I would just shake my head.
You don't even want to listen.
And then just don't even, and I just completely disregard whatever the story was, right?
Yeah.
But it was like he wanted attention and he wanted to be able to look like he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But again, that's an example of not being honest with yourself. It's like, why can't you just be honest and just tell us the truth?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, again, again, another reason why it's difficult to be honest is social pressure.
Yeah.
You don't want to look dumb, or maybe you think by saying these things you're going to look smart. Right. So these are things that are just not helping you, though. You're going to get more credit spiritually by being honest and being truthful, because that's what everyone's around you is going to appreciate.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe that for sure. Because just over time, like your friendship kind of you just didn't want to listen to them.
You just stopped listening to them.
Yeah, completely. Okay, number 2 was consider long-term consequences of your actions. It might be tempting to think short-term for personal gain, but to live an honest life, you need to have the long-term in focus. White lies. Lies of omission all erode the trust people will have on you. Once trust is lost, it can be very hard, if not impossible, to gain back.
Right. So take, for example, the friends we just talked about.
Yeah.
Right. So they didn't think about the long-term consequences of constantly telling these stories that were complete BS, right?
That's sad because like if I had known that from like then, would I have said anything? Like I know you're lying, or I know you're maybe if I came out and was honest with them about how I feel instead of just drifting away.
Yeah.
We'd still be friends. Maybe if I was on, I don't know.
It's a good question. I mean, because
I wasn't honest with them, really.
You weren't honest with them.
No.
That's on you.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's on me.
Yeah.
But the truth is that, I think you probably stepped away from that because your thought was, well, this person isn't being honest with me. And if I was honest with them, are they even going to listen?
Right.
Because then you think, well, they just can't even be honest with themselves. How much more are they going to even appreciate if someone else is honest with them?
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think a lot of people get derailed. But when it comes to our own consequences and our own actions, which are the only things we can control, then we just have to be cognizant of the fact that, regardless of what other people say, if there is somebody who is in that condition, we need to have the strength to be honest with them.
Yeah.
And go ahead and say it anyway.
Yeah.
Just like, buddy, I know what you're saying isn't true. And you don't have to say those things to impress me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then see what happens.
Exactly.
So
the consequences for like our actions for not speaking up and saying that is we could have taught a friend honesty.
Yeah.
Or we could have taught them that, and we might have lost a friend maybe.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm thinking back to some times where I actually tried to correct them, and they just argued with me.
Yes.
And they wouldn't listen to what I was saying.
And they always tried to up you. I know.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, I felt like I couldn't tell them any story because they always had one 10 times better.
Yeah.
And then I was feeling downgraded, and it made me feel crappy as a person.
Yeah. Well,
that's a me problem again.
Yeah. It's, in what I'm remembering from the times that I tried to correct my friend, I just know that when I tried to, they would just argue with me and say, no, they were right. And no matter what I said wasn't true. Like, it wasn't true. It's just like, no, I'm wrong. He's right.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no.
Why would you find that?
So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so number 3 is personal integrity. Be true to yourself and stay true to yourself. Rely on what is true to you rather than other people's opinions. So, I'm finding it hard to, I guess, know the difference between that and being honest with yourself.
Sorry, what do you mean?
personal integrity. So being true to yourself, what's the difference between being true to yourself and staying true to yourself versus being honest with yourself?
So we have certain value hierarchy, all of us, and with that, we need to be true to that. And if we're not honest with ourselves about that, where we do something that doesn't align with that, that's when we will start to slip up and do things and say things that are not honest. So we need to be true to ourselves, what matters to us, and that's different for everybody, right? They're all in different places in their lives. They're all in their different points in their journey. So you just have to be cognizant that we are not relying on other people's opinions to determine like what matters to us.
Right. So honesty would come before personal integrity. Being honest with yourself, that would come before.
You need to have personal integrity.
To be
you need to be
honest.
honest with yourself in order to have personal integrity.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Number 4 is keep your word. If you make a mistake, own it. If you are unable to keep a commitment, say so. It may be disappointing to those in the short term, but keeping your word will go a long way to people with maintaining their trust and for you for living an honest life.
Yes. So this is one I struggle with.
Is it?
Well, I struggle with it in a kind of a small way. So, for example, like, if I make mistakes, I own it.
Yeah.
If I make a commitment, if I'm unable to make a commitment, I don't say so.
Right.
So sometimes I'll say, yeah, I'll be able to have that by the end of the week. Next thing I know, the end of the week has come. I haven't been able to, something inside me just doesn't reach out and say, sorry, I didn't get that done.
Yeah.
And then next week comes, and then I'm finally getting to it. And this is the kind of thing that's my faux pas. Like I have a hard time sticking to that kind of stuff, and it's just like it's frustrating because it keeps happening.
Yeah. I think I probably struggle with that too, but it's more. No, maybe not. I think keeping my word, I probably, out of those 4, is probably my strongest one. I don't know. I think it's easy for myself to admit a mistake that I made. Like if I made a mistake, even if it wasn't me and I was just like a small part of it, I'll take full blame. I don't because I learn from stuff like that.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I might be just being really hard on myself.
I think
because
you are.
Generally speaking, when I enter into anytime I have some kind of agreement, I keep to my word. Like if I have an agreement, there's like people know that I'm going to do my part.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to shirk on that. If
Right.
And this is why a lot of people like to do business with me.
It might take you a couple extra days,
Yeah, well,
but you get it done.
yeah. So and this is why a lot of people like to do business with me, because like if there's some kind of deal and there has to be a transaction, they can count on me to like follow through with the transaction.
Yep.
Truthfully, in business, that's rare. It's surprising how many times where you enter into an agreement and then the other person is just like either shirking on making payment, or they're dancing around, and then suddenly they're trying to change terms and all this kind of garbage. I've dealt with that in the past with some people, but the truth is that the people who really succeed in terms of business are the ones that actually keep their word, right? And because if like your word is your bond, is an old saying, right?
Yeah.
And if the people are talking to you and trying to work with you, if they can't count on the things you're saying being the way it's going to be, then they can't count on you. Like they know you're not being honest, right? And that's such a huge deal when it comes to business dealings, like in the world. And the further you go, you have to be able to be upfront about all that kind of stuff, because like I said, as soon as like people think that like if you say one thing and then you do another, or you dance around where you thought there was an agreement, it gets frustrating. And the truth is I deal with that kind of stuff all the time with like trying to work out deals with different kinds of people all the time, and where I think, okay, we're settled, and then suddenly they change it, and I was just like, I really want to do a deal, but you're not being honest with me. Like I get frustrated with that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that keeping your word is a great way to gain a lot of social points. Because how many times do you want to be able to say, you know what, like when I tell so and so to get something done and they say they're going to do it, I don't even have to think about it because I know they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And to you, that is just like the end all be all of the greatest thing to experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
There's a huge value. I mean, like as far as building bricks go, and as far as like the things you should be doing in your life to thrive, this is the one thing that could just like make you skyrocket wherever you are.
Just keeping your word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't even matter where you are. If you are just working at McDonald's on the line, you know, if you're that guy that's just like whatever they'd ask you to do, they know they'll get it done.
Yeah.
Guess how quickly you'll move up that line.
Yeah. Oh,
you know? Yeah, because
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you insert yourself in life. If you can keep your word and just be honest about it all, you're going to go places.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's a great note to end it on. Keep your word.
Keep your word, yes.
You'll go places.
Yes, so those are the 4 ways to build your building brick of honesty to be able to thrive in today's world.
Thank you for listening to Enter the Bunker. Make sure to follow us on Instagram where you can share your story and also look at behind the scenes of how we make our podcast. You can watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube by simply searching Enter the Bunker. Tune in next time as we launch into thriving.